So what exactly is the difference between margarine and butter? I thought they were the same things. Well, Phoebe, the main difference between the two is in the strength of their intermolecular forces that bind their atoms. For one, butter is a solid and margarine is a semi-solid at room temperature. Margarine is actually produced from oils by a process known as hydrogenation.
Wait, before you move on, how are butter and oils related?
Well, firstly, they're both fatty acids. However, they differ in that one is composed of saturated fatty acids and the other unsaturated fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids like butter and lard are alkanes, having single bonds between their carbon atoms to create straight hydrocarbon chains. The fatty acids fit closely together, allowing for many van der Waals attractions along its length, which is what makes butter solid at room temperature. Margarine, on the other hand, is an alkyne, containing carbon-carbon double bonds. These double bonds create kinks in the fatty acid, which reduces the number of van der Waals attractions, causing oils to be liquid at room temperature. Oh, I get it now. So what's this hydrogenation stuff that you mentioned before? I know that butter is made from churning, but how is margarine made? Let's go take a look. To the bus!
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you'll see it. Puss in my neighborhood, surfing on the sine wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at Jewel Testing, take your second right past Mars on the magic school bus. Alligator nostril, climb on the magic school bus. Make a plane turn to on our magic school bus. Drop the river of lava on the magic school bus. Such a fine thing to do. So strap your bones right to the seat. Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pie on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wild ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
Now to answer a question about how margarine is made, Phoebe, does anyone know?
I do. I read it from the book my mom gave me for Christmas. So basically, hydrogenation is a form of chemical reduction in which hydrogen molecules, H2, are added to an unsaturated fatty acid, such as vegetable oils. This process is most commonly used to reduce or saturate organic compounds. In other words, to convert liquid substances into a semi-solid form, like oil into margarine.
Exactly. Hydrogenation affects the textual properties of food. The degree of hydrogenation influences firmness and spreadability of margarines.
Whoa, what's happening?
What you're seeing, class, is liquid oil hardening. The oil is exposed to high temperature and placed under pressure. Hydrogen is then bubbled through the oil in the presence of nickel, platinum, and some other catalysts. Non-catalytic hydrogenation takes place only at very high temperatures. The hydrogen atoms combine with the carbon atoms with a single bond, and the product becomes saturated or hardened. Further processes, such as the use of corrosive chemicals to bleach the product, are conducted to finish the making of margarine.
Wow, that's so cool!
So how does yeast help to make wine? Well, we would have to learn what yeast is first.
I know! Yeast is a kind of fungi that helps grape juice to ferment.
What does ferment mean?
Geez, don't you know anything? Fermentation is the process of getting energy from the oxidation of organic compounds, most commonly sugar.
Very good, Dorothy Ann. Class, this is the formula for alcoholic fermentation. Can anyone tell me which compound is which?
It goes glucose to ethanol and carbon dioxide.
Excellent. Now, where does the yeast come in?
It acts as a catalyst, which is a substance that speeds up a chemical reaction but is not used up in the process. It isn't really part of the reaction itself. That's why it isn't written.
Learning about this in the classroom is very boring. So, to the bus!
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you'll see it. Puss in my neighborhood, surfing on the sine wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at Jewel Testing, take your second right past Mars on the magic school bus. Alligator nostril, climb on the magic school bus. Make a plane turn to on our magic school bus. Drop the river of lava on Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pie on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wilder ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
Whoa, where are we? We're at the winery. Now, class, do you know what catalysts actually do in a reaction?
I remember. Catalysts increase the rate of a chemical reaction without being consumed. They work by lowering the activation energy of a reaction so that more reactants have sufficient energy to react.
Excellent, Tim. That is exactly what yeast is doing to the grape juice. It contains enzymes such as zymase that catalyze the breakdown of glucose into ethanol and carbon dioxide. These enzymes provide alternate mechanisms for the reaction. These mechanisms are often more than one step.
What exactly are these mechanisms?
Good question. When the yeast is introduced to the grape juice, phosphates attach to the glucose. Glucose is then broken down into 3 carbon pieces called pyruvate. This compound is then rearranged and broken down into carbon dioxide and acetaldehyde. It is then reduced to form ethanol, the alcohol.
So these small step reactions require less energy than the direct reaction?
Yes, that is correct.
Is this an anaerobic reaction, Mrs. Frizzle?
Right you are. It does not require oxygen in the process. Cool! So that's yeast's role in the production of wine.
My mother once told me that milk is just oil and water mixed together. Is this true?
No way! It can't be! I thought that oil and water don't mix together.
Then was she wrong?
Not at all, Tim. This is a very interesting question. Let's take a closer look at milk. To the bus!
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you'll see it. What's in my neighborhood? Surfing on a sound wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at Jasmine testing. Take your second right past Mars on the magic school bus. Navigator nostril, climb on the magic school bus. Spank a plankton too.
Take that!
On our magic school bus. Drop the river of lava on the magic school bus. Such a fine thing to do. So strap your bones right to the seat. Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pie on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wilder ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
Whoa! Where are we? Welcome to the microscopic version of milk. Now, class, we're going to answer Tim's question. Oil and water cannot mix together because oil is nonpolar while water is polar.
Hey, what's that? I believe that is an emulsifier. According to my research, emulsifiers are compounds that stop 2 or more immiscible liquids from separating into different layers. Wow, how does it do that?
Well, emulsifiers are part of a group of compounds called surfactants. This means that on one end they are polar and on the other they are nonpolar. The polar side is hydrophilic, which means that it loves water. This is because of the intermolecular forces between water and the polar side. What's an intermolecular force?
An intermolecular force is a force of attraction between molecules or ions. There are different kinds of intermolecular forces, such as dipole-dipole forces and ion-dipole forces. These forces help to dissolve solutes within solvents. Since water is a polar molecule, it will be attracted to the polar side of the emulsifier. This force is either a dipole-dipole or an ion-dipole attraction, depending on the type of emulsifier.
Right you are, Dorothy Ann. Nonpolar side is hydrophobic, which means that it hates water. Again, this is because of the intermolecular forces at work. The only forces between the nonpolar end and water are London dispersion forces, which are extremely weak. This causes the nonpolar end and water to dislike one another. Cool! So how does an emulsifier work?
When an emulsifier enters water, its polar ends form ion-dipole or dipole-dipole bonds with water. The nonpolar end orients itself away from water by entering oil droplets. Oh, I get it. The oil droplets are then broken up into smaller particles. Because the surface of the oil particle is now covered with the polar end of the emulsifier, these oil droplets can now interact with water. Am I right?
Correct! Nice job, Tim.